This video is going to be all about the rack setup on my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. I'm going to talk about some things to consider before purchasing a roof rack, a bit about the installation process, and how I plan on configuring these racks on my setup. All right, let's get to it. First, I got to get down from here. That's going to be a big jump. So my Gladiator has two racks on it. I've got one that mounts to the hardtop of the Gladiator and one that's on the back of my Mitts alloy tray bed. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus more on the one that fits on my cab since my tray bed's a little unique. If you want to know more about my tray bed configuration, I will put a link right now on the screen and you can learn about everything about the Mitts alloy bed, why I upgraded to it, how I use it, and how it's configured. Now, one of the things that I did right out of the gate after I ordered the Mitts alloy bed is I started looking at roof racks. The main reason being, and I'm being honest here, is I knew that the Mitts alloy bed was going to stick above the cab of the Gladiator just a little bit, and I thought a roof rack would complement that really well. That sent me down the rabbit hole of roof rack options for the Gladiator. Most of them I have found are made of aluminum and attached to the drip rail of the Gladiator. Now, most manufacturers say you're limited to about 200 pounds, which is more than I would ever put up there. In terms of different roof rack options, you know, a lot of it's style and a lot of it's going to be functionality for what you're going to be putting on it. For me, I had an idea of a long Pelican case and a solar panel. I really didn't think I would be doing too much more on the front of the Jeep. Number one, logistically, it's be very difficult to put a full-size mountain bike up there for me. I'm not tall. It'd just really be a pain in the butt. I can put my kids' bikes up there and strap them down all day long. Me putting a full-size Kona is not going to happen. So be realistic about what you think you want to put on the roof. I already have a place for a spare fuel can. I already have a full 8-gallon onboard water system with my tray bed, so I didn't need it for that. So I knew I had some flexibility when I started looking at different rack options. Now, in terms of racks themselves, obviously I wanted something that was going to complement the Mitts alloy bed visually, and that's really one of the things that started make me gravitate toward this Ujoint rack. It's comprised primarily of extruded aluminum that's been powder coated black, and I really like this look. The next thing is I knew it was sort of going to be modular in that I could easily add and subtract accessories from it, so that was a big deal. Now, the Ujoint rack weighs about 38 pounds, so it's not a huge footprint you're putting up there in terms of weight. Now, it is a 5-bar rack and uses a total of 4 mounting feet to secure it to the drip rail. Now, the main leg attaches to the rack, and then you have an external bracket that actually pulls the rack to the drip rail and tightens it up. There's enough room here for the door to easily open and close, so that's not a worry. Now, you will have to assemble this rack yourself, and the big thing to note here is you're going to be sliding in the hardware through the extruded aluminum. So you want to make sure, no matter how many crossbars, if you're going to add any additional ones or aftermarket accessories, that you go ahead and do this before you put the end caps on. I opted for the Ujoint universal tie-down mounts. There are optional awning mounts as well. For me, I just thought the tie-down mounts was going to be enough for now. The other thing that Ujoint did is they really made sure to essentially put the rack in a spot that wasn't going to make it really loud. And I know that's one of those things that if you've ever had a roof rack, you might not know how loud these things can be if they're not positioned correctly. But if you put it right up against the header of the Jeep or the windshield, you're going to get a lot of wind whistle. If you've ever had a light bar, you're probably familiar with that. So they wisely set this thing back a good little bit, and that makes a huge difference with wind noise. It also makes it very helpful if you are going to do some type of light bar or light configuration. You're not going to get so much light wash and that extra noise that you get from having it sort of essentially sticking in front of the windshield. There's a lot of wind moving on this box going down the road, and anything you push out in front of there is going to make some noise. Now, what I primarily use the rack for right now is basically strapping kids' bikes to it and using it for a solar panel. I have a foldable solar panel from EcoFlow. It's a 150 watt panel, very effective at charging back up my Delta Mini and my Delta 2, especially if I'm going to be sitting out on the beach for the day, hanging out with the kids. So that's really what stays up there effectively. Once I figure out what I'm going to do for my rooftop tent or how the back's going to be configured, I can do something a little bit more permanently mounted. I really like the idea of a hard mount solar panel that actually feeds the battery and the car battery, I should say, and doing some type of long Pelican case. If you are looking at different rack options, there may be some that allow you to do a little bit more weight, but that's going to require you to tie into the chassis or the factory sport bar somehow. I did not want to go down that road. I wanted to be able to unbolt this thing and take it off and take the top off if I still wanted to be able to do that. And this definitely gives me that option. Now that's really the U-joint rack in a nutshell. All made in the USA, all comes powder coated, all aluminum. I really like it. It's a super solid system. I like how it looks. And again, for me, the extruded aluminum looks different from a lot of the other racks that are offered on the market. So I'm a big fan of it. And this is a good chance to sort of talk about this rear rack and some of the things that you got to be aware of before ordering a roof rack. I opted for this roof rack thinking, okay, I'll put a rooftop tent on it, or maybe I won't. I'll have a lot of good tie-down points. I like the styling of the rack. Obviously, everything sort of matched together. So that's why I checked that box from Mitts Alloy. Now, what I have found with it is it's very effective in terms of you have spots to tie things down. The challenge with it is most of the rooftop tents that I've had in the past and I've been looking at use a crossbar style mounting system. And this rack is actually too low profile to do that. So you have to have some sort of L bracket to make that work, or I'm gonna have to do some sort of modification to put a crossbar setup to allow me to have that style rooftop tent. Haven't really committed on which way I'm going to go there. I do know, because the way these doors on the Canopy open, that it makes the most sense to have a tent that I can access from the back. And that's really where I'm leaning towards right now. The big thing is trying to figure out how wide of a tent, because I really don't want it to stick out over the cab in terms of width. I don't mind if it goes over the cab this way, but if it does, again, I don't want to mount a solar panel that's now covered in shade. So I've got to figure that out. A lot of things are sort of fluid right now. After doing this big upgrade and all this other stuff, I'm honestly just kind of like, I want to enjoy it. This isn't really good camping season right now for by the time I'm filming this. Wait till it gets a little bit warmer, and then I'll start, figuring out what makes the most sense. Trust me, my kids constantly remind me that this says Tent Jeep on it, and they really want another rooftop tent up there. So we're going to figure something out. But for right now, this setup works very well for me as it sits. I will continue to sort of modify and tweak this thing as I figure out what's going to happen in the back and make some changes up front. So hopefully you guys will be here for that journey. Please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really helps the channel. If you ever have any questions for me, you can always check me out on Instagram at Ollie Mansour Editor. And until next time, take care.